Hello and welcome to Media and More with the Mediocre Modeler. It is June and it's my first Media and More. The first part of the year was just chock full of Moff Gideon trying to get that cosplay across the line for Wonderfest, and I did get it done. But it took a lot of time and energy to do. And then I had another little thing in there. I had another side job that I did for my buddy Pete. But all that energy was spent, and there was no time for Media and More. Now, I still plan on going back and covering like the final season of The Bad Batch. John Jackson Miller just did a book called The Living Force that I really enjoyed. I want to cover that. And there's some other things that I would like to cover. But since right after Wonderfest was over, the Acolyte started, I figured, hey, let's cover the Acolyte. And I was talking to one of my sons about it, and he had some opinions about it, and I had some opinions about it. I'm like, you know what? We should just sit down together and talk about the show. So that's what we're going to do. So let's get him in here and get set up, and we'll start talking about the Acolyte. Please help me welcome my son to the Mediocre Modeler Studio, the Media and More Studios, Andre. So the first thing, I have to apologize. My chair is a little bit more comfy than yours, so we're going to have to fix that.
We'll work that out.
But, okay, so we know my threshold to entry for Star Wars is OG. You know, I mean, I was there at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Even though you have been raised in this environment, for their sake, I think you should kind of give them your mindset of where you come into Star Wars.
Okay. I will say that it wasn't necessarily about, like, you've read a lot of books, and the only reference I've had is movies, and of course, the plethora of action figures lining, the upper area of the old basement. Beyond that, I hadn't really cared for the general history of Star Wars until I'd say Mandalorian kicked in.
Oh, that far in.
That was when I started to take it personal, but I would say I kind of tapped out, and this is a lot of people, with 4, 5, and 6, which we'll probably have to say for a much more extensive conversation. But I just kind of feel like when The Mandalorian came in, it felt like old school Star Wars to me.
Absolutely.
And so that's what really drew me in and had me hard focused on the general history of things. But beyond that, I would say something that I touched on pretty heavily, which is Dark Empire as well.
Okay.
So I've always wanted to see where things would go after episode 6. Right? Yeah, episode 6. And so it's kind of a shame that, Disney has its own direction with things, and I have my own feelings on behalf of things, but I kind of understand the direction that they're trying to go with this. And so I'm just kind of along for the ride and trying to see how it all turns out. Hopefully good for all of us.
Right. Well, okay, so I like to say that everyone's welcome as far as Star Wars is concerned. Whatever your threshold to entry was. There's stuff that I don't care for, so I just kind of stay away from it. But we're not here to talk about the history of Star Wars. We're here to talk about the Acolyte.
Right.
So, the Acolyte. The opening. Well, okay. Let's take a break here. I'm going to let it continue to run.
Yeah, of course.
Let's just see where we are.
Because you do realize we're going to have to go back and do 1 through 3.
Yeah, well,
we got to do 1 through 3, then 4, 5, 6.
Well, hey, if you want to do it, we can do that.
We have
do
to. We
that.
kind of have to. It's
I'm going to let all three of these go in, and then I want to. Okay. Okay. 3, 2, 1. So instead of an opening crawl, you get just the opening paragraph, and this is 100 years before the rise of the Empire. It is time of peace. The Jedi Order and the Galactic Republic have prospered for centuries without war. But in the dark corners of the galaxy, a powerful few learn to use the Force in secret. One of them, a lone assassin, risks discovery to seek revenge. So I'm kind of on the fence. There are just a lot of dark corners of the galaxy. Every time you turn, there's always someone in this little hidey hole.
It seems like they're using the Outer Rim as an area for them to kind of just dabble and, trickle their own story, which is actually okay.
I'm okay with that too. I'm okay with that.
Realistically, I mean, from what I've learned, the Empire's solely focused on the Inner Rim, and so that leaves a lot to interpretation.
Well, and like I said, this is supposed to be 100 years before the events of the rise of the Empire. So there are a plethora of Jedi, which is what I've kind of been waiting on. The problem I've seen with Star Wars up until now is the Jedi were supposed to always be the good guys, and then just this new, I don't know what it is. This they're trying to make the Jedi the bad guys, and the reason for the galaxy went south, and I'm just like, no.
I will say that is a common issue a lot of fans have, is that they are trying to put the Jedi in more of a gray realm. And I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of the anti-hero films that we've been seeing throughout, the course of the Disney franchise. And perhaps that's, there might be some room to you might actually have a lot more information because you've read more books. I'm not entirely sure if there are Jedis
there are gray Jedi, or in Legends there were gray Jedi,
and so I'm a Legends fan.
So I mean, I don't have a problem with that concept.
Right.
I'd have to consult the official the information out there to see if there are still gray Jedi or whatever. But just this idea, there's always some little hole out there. There's just somebody that's just like Jedi. It's just like,
personally, I think that's just a ploy on the production side to just create their own story. And
but
we've been seeing a lot of that.
It's been done too ad nauseum. Well, okay.
I also heard that there's a book or a series of books that they're referencing this from. It's like the Jedi High Council. I actually had it. I was trying to search for it on my phone, but they were using references to a similar story that took place 100 years prior. That's supposed to be somewhere in the realm of what we're seeing in the show.
So here's where I think you and I differ. You're willing to go out there and look and see what the studio's thinking or what other people are thinking.
Yes.
The way I look at it is, I look at the trailer, and whatever the trailer gives me is all I go in completely dry.
Right.
So I have no idea, except for like maybe you might know some of the characters. Oh, so and so was cast for such and such.
Right.
As in this, it was Carrie-Anne Moss.
Yes.
Is supposed to be this great Jedi, and so we get to see her first. So we're gonna check out this first scene, and then we'll get right back with you. Okay, opening scene. We get our bad guy. Okay, first of all, purple cloak. I'm a fan. Okay, it's just that's the way. But the one thing I did like walking into this bar is the fact that usually when they have an alien bar scene, it's like, hey, it's an alien bar scene. Look at all these crazy aliens out. And it was a lot more low key.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that.
We're missing the music. I think that would have been like the over the top. alien bar scene that
well,
we
I
were
mean,
expecting.
because I mean, for the scene it said okay, and it's she's supposed to be low key going in there, but she walks up to the table, and she says, "We have unfinished business," and what I did not like was when Carrie Ann Moss responded, she said, attack me with all your might.
Yeah.
And she says, my child, whatever, yes, my child. It's just so robotic and just so flat. And like, I understand you're trying to be a somber Jedi, but it was just way too flat.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was a decision on behalf of the production, considering how good of an actress Carrie Ann Moss is. This is a bit off subject, but in terms of her role in The Matrix, I think that she did pretty good. So when I saw her initially in this particular first episode, I had higher expectations. So perhaps that line just kind of went over my head. But I do see where that it does, like when you're here in that format, it does kind of fall flat, and that's unfortunate. As we go further, there are a lot of other reasons on why I feel like casting her. I understand that in future episodes we will see her again, but if it were up to me, I probably would have shifted her position on screen to much later.
Okay. Well, okay. So two things. One, it is hard to not know her from The Matrix. If you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that. So that was my biggest problem with the fight scene. Now the fight scenes were good, but they weren't great.
No, they were not.
And for this being the opening episode, they're trying to draw people in, and I could see why they did it this way, but I felt like I was just looking at a Matrix fight.
Absolutely.
And that was just, and I have to argue with, I have to question the choice of wording, attack, you're a Jedi, attack me with all your strength.
Yeah.
I'm just like, her response will, Jedi don't attack unarmed, which is fine, but it's just like, if you know the Jedi, she's not going to attack you.
Right.
So I was just like, at this point, I was literally like, okay.
And when she silenced the group, I mean, I get it. I mean, because I expected the chuckle too, but, you know, at the same time, I don't know. I mean, I was kind of questioning, like, who are these people she's sitting at the table with?
Why are you in this bar?
Like, what are we doing here? I do agree with you as far as the fighting goes, and I guess that comes from the whole reference to what is an acolyte. I mean, obviously they have a fighting style that's outside of using weapons per se, but it did feel kind of Matrix-esque as far as, like, there's just a lot more punches than I was expecting. I mean, of course, we're anticipating more of a duel between one individual and another, so the punches didn't seem like they had enough oomph in there.
Well,
okay. And you do have to remember that Carrie Ann Moss is like, what, in her 50s, 60s?
Right.
And that's the same sentiment that we had to have for the Matrix movie as well. And I apologize for pulling, but like a lot of us were looking at Keanu Reeves like, these we just got done watching John Wick, and then the Matrix didn't really add up. So in my initial...
Here's the thing, though. What I did like about what she was doing, as the young warrior, she's being attacked, and she just kind of deflected. She just moved out of the way, and I'm just like,
yes.
And that's what a master would do,
right?
Just like let you use your energy up, and
right. We would see the same thing from a martial arts film,
right? So
it's very common.
I did like. Okay, at one point she deflects her, and it's like she was trying to grab the lightsaber.
Yeah.
And so...
what was the goal? And I know that's really a rhetorical question, but still, it's like I didn't understand what was she, because she didn't take the... What when we get there?
Right.
When we get there.
Okay, right. So... I liked the fight. I liked when she pulled out her knives.
Yeah.
There were a couple of times where when she tried to, and she just like she stopped her. I'm just like, that was a good move.
Yeah.
At one point, she disarms her, or she has one in her hand, and before she can use it, she pulled it up with the Carrie Ann Moss. We should probably start using her Jedi name, but whatever.
Right.
She pulls it over into the other hand. I'm just like, that was slick. I like that move. So there were some points to it. I guess I was a little bit surprised that they waited so late in the fight to for her to pull her lightsaber. But what
would you say that she was more reserved for waiting, or at least, and maybe that was the direction that they wanted for her, like it's a timing thing. Like,
could be, but I think what got me was she had she did pull the lightsaber, and then she said something like, a Jedi only pulls, if a Jedi pulls her weapon, they should be ready to kill.
right.
I disagree with that sentiment from the standpoint of a Jedi.
I agree.
That a Jedi, just because a Jedi, it's a Jedi, not a ninja. So are you comfortable with the coverage of the fight? Then get to the summary of the end of the fight.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, when we get to they're up on the upper tier. Mm-hmm. She had thrown one knife down into the ground. The bartender was behind the thing. She throws the knife down. Well, okay. She knocked the woman down. She catches her with the lady, and she dropped her off.
Yeah.
She throws the knife down to kill the bartender. She catches it with the force, and then she's
Distracted,
stabbed.
right.
She just okay. I'm just gonna say, Mace Windu wouldn't have fell for that. A lot of other Jedi would have not fallen for that. I mean, they would have stopped it in midair, dropped it, and then they would have been able to catch the other one. I kind of feel like she went out like a punk.
I agree. I was very disappointed. But I felt it coming. I mean, maybe this is a stretch, but perhaps she's, this tends to happen in films where, like, when you're the highest paid actor, sometimes they're like, we got to kill you.
Get you in, get you out.
And that really sucks. But and so when we talk in later episodes, it was nice to see her come back because there's still more story to tell. But knowing her as an actress and what she's capable of in terms of like her prowess, I think that we could have saved, like, there are a few other Jedis that we come across later where we could have just shifted her position, and then she could have been more of like, not necessarily a boss fight level per se, because I think that we don't know because we're only up to episode 3, but because we know, I'm forgetting the main Jedi over Osha. And so,
yes,
of course, he would be last in terms of, like, if we're talking like fights. But
right.
I think that Carrie Ann Moss's character would be second to last. That's what I would prefer out of a film.
Right. Well, okay. Right. But, okay, so I guess we get more information on the Jedi that were a part of this. But, I mean, from where we're standing at this point, all we do see is Carrie Ann Moss. And I think the problem with knowing that there are other characters that have been killed with lightsabers or attacked and injured with lightsabers and still survived.
Oh yeah. You're so right.
In Obi-Wan, the seventh sister got stabbed with the lightsaber, and she still survived. Now, I had made the argument back at the time, just like, well, these are alien people. Their organs are,
to me, that's a stretch. That's a stretch, but
I'm just like, and maybe she did get her in the heart. Maybe there was poison on the blade. It just felt like she died too easily.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like we're saying that to some degree if you're a humanoid. Well,
Right. Your organs are
more
probably
than likely your heart's going to be in there. I saw that coming. I had a feeling it was coming. There were just too many force stops to where it was inevitable that one was going to land. And I mean, I was just waiting for it to happen. I knew it was going to come from a distraction.
right. Well, yeah. When she was holding it, I knew that was
The
that was
moment
gonna.
the bar owner shuffled and made noise, I was like, it's coming. It's obviously it's going to be the next thing, and that was just enough distraction. As far as not OSHA, May's character goes, I do feel like she was a coward for taking on the first hostage, using that, and then turning around and then throwing it, the kunai, yeah, it was like a kunai, essentially, at the bar owner. And then on the back end of that fight, then walking up, retrieving her weapon, and then, further threatening, like you've already cleared the bar.
Right.
There's no more you can threaten this owner. And then, you see the little child, like that was just enough, like from whatever you have repressed to make you stop.
So I guess you could read that one of two ways. You could read it as the child was there and I had trauma in my childhood and I don't want to traumatize the child. Or you could have read it as I've made my point. My goal was to kill the Jedi. I've done that and anything here. But the thing about it is, had she killed him, the bartender, they wouldn't have anybody to go.
All right. That's her.
So
hopefully they paid him for his time.
I was thinking well, his bar was ruined. So
that's true.
What else was he gonna do? He probably had his guys fix the bar. I'm going with the Jedi.
Yeah, for 5 seconds.
Right. So, bar fight's over. We get introduced to Osha, and she's she's on a ship. She's working outside ship maintenance, which in the Empire or Republic is supposed to be outlawed. The only droids are supposed to do that, but she's out there. But after the events of the bar fight, she wakes up with a start, and you're like, okay, what was that?
Right.
Because at this point, I'm not entirely sure. I'm thinking maybe she might be like split personality type thing. But she wakes up to her droid, which was like a little handheld device. And I was saying that I am not a fan of this droid. Every episode, we get a new droid introduced, and this one, I don't like the aesthetic because I don't know why, but it's this little droid, so there's no arms, no legs, and she takes it with her outside, and she needs to weld something, so it's a droid, plus it's a welder, plus it's a fire extinguisher, because she was doing something, and a fire breaks out in space. And I know you had a problem with the fire in space.
Everyone has a problem with the fire in space. It's just odd.
So, but the point they were going for is fire is a part of her past, and the fire, you could see the fire on her in the reflection of her helmet, which for the moment traumatized her, despite the fact that the ship is burning.
Yeah.
So
perhaps if that had taken place after they had re-entered the ship, like they fixed the issue, but perhaps they misjudged something, and then we saw the flames on the inside.
On the inside, that would have made more sense.
Yeah, I think people would be a little less upset about it. But
I thought maybe there was
we just broke
science. Right. Okay.
All science.
So they went to. Okay, here's the theory. Oh, that doesn't work. I'm not saying. So here's the theory. So they went out to fix the shield. Well, if they were in atmosphere when they turned the shields on, maybe there's a bubble that the air is in, and but they weren't. They were in space.
Yeah. If there had been a small explosion and it were played in slow motion, I think that would also been enough to be like, okay, she had a moment, that reminded her of something, and then nobody would even, we would have just mulled over because it would just been an explosion. That happens all the time in Star
Right.
Wars shows. So, not the best moment
Right.
for Star Wars and science, but I mean, like, I guess we get to bend rules on that one.
Right. Well,
because
it is
reasons.
sci-fi.
Right. Right.
So while they're out there, they see a Jedi ship. Her companions is like, "Oh, what are the Jedi doing here?" And they're on the ship with Nemoidians, and the Nemoidians are like, "Oh, we don't know anything about tech. What do you mean? There's a Jedi? You're looking for someone who? This is a cargo ship, not a passenger ship." And so our guy Yord, this
Yes.
guy missed. I just don't. I don't want to say I don't like this guy, but he is the poster child for the stick up the butt Jedi. He just the first thing he goes to do is like he was going to use the Jedi mind trick on this.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just kind of his thing. Like he went through the motions, and like it's either a 50% chance you're gonna scare them into telling you the truth, or we don't even know if he can actually do that.
Right?
I
No,
guess
no, we do not.
He's
No,
a
we do
knight,
not.
but you know
Yeah, but he's only been a knight for 2 years.
that's true.
So
That's true.
okay, we don't know that yet, but we find Osha, and so when she sees Yord, she's like, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing here?" She's happy to see him, and you can tell that there was some kind of relationship, some kind of friendship. I'm not going to say relationship because that's, let's say there was at least some kind of a friendship going on, and she's just like, "How you doing, buddy?" And you finally made knight. And yes, 2 years ago. I mean, he was very emphatic about the 2 years ago. And so she's like, "Well, why are you here?" "Well, there was a Jedi killed, and so where were you last night?" And she was like, "I was here on the ship." Now, the only thing that gave me pause at this point was when you first introduced her, when we were first introduced to her, one of her other ship companions was just like, "You should have come out with us last night."
Oh, right.
And he was just like, "What I do on my time is my own business." So immediately thinking, she snuck off the ship. She went and she killed
what are
her.
you doing?
Yeah. So when they start interrogating her, we don't know.
Right.
But they're like telling her, "You have to go with us," and even though that they're supposed to be they've had a friendship in the past. He slapped the cuffs on her like she's a common criminal, and I'm just like, "Yeah, Yord, I'm not feeling this guy."
It seemed like his Padawan holding on to her little droid. I don't know. I feel like that was a little disingenuous. I mean, I guess it would be rude to just throw it in a box, but I don't know. Just kind of like, you're just handling my stuff.
Right.
Just a little
Well,
bit.
okay. So that kind of leads us into the next scene. So they put her on a prisoner ship and send her, I guess, off to prison before they even know for sure. Well, okay. Let's draw that back. When they're in the ship, they're in the ship, and they're just like, well, you were the one that killed him. Well, the bartender from the bar fight, they brought him with them to go identify her.
Yeah.
Why exactly?
Yeah, I mean,
to drag him across the
hologram would have been fine. A
Yeah.
real image, anything would have been better than taking an extra 5 seconds for him to walk in and say, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, she did. The bar was jacked up, so maybe he didn't have anything better to do
Yeah.
at this point.
Just taxi the guy up here right quick.
Right. So, and I guess that would make sense why there were two separate ships, because they wouldn't want him on the prison bar. Okay. So
I didn't care for that.
the prison ship.
They should have just taken her straight to Coruscant.
And that was kind of my
like, if this is a Jedi issue, she would be on a
but
heavily guarded.
but they're trying to keep this hush hush.
Right.
So it's just like, go snatch her up, put her in a cell, and we'll figure it out later. Which I have a big problem with that, because this is again leaning towards the narrative that the Jedi are the bad guy. bad guys in this series, and I really, really, really don't like that. But they, so the Jedi head back off to Coruscant or wherever they were headed, and yeah, they were heading back to Coruscant. The prison ship, they're taken on there, and the main droid, the prison guard droid, he's got a head that kind of reminds me of Rom, and I'm just like, that was my first thought, which kind of took me out of it a little bit. But I need to look and see if maybe there's some kind of Rom Star Wars connection, or if someone just like, hey, we'll sneak this in here, which is hard to do anymore. You can't hardly sneak anything anywhere. But the other prisoners talk to Oshi, and they're just like, we're busting out of here. And she's just like, no, I'm fine. And you have another prisoner who's got this parasite thing that keeps him mentally drugged. And so they have another prisoner that's part mechanoid or whatever, weird looking. He's got like a fleshy potato head, and he's got these like a display, visor, but it's like very scrunched. And it reminded me of some characters from, I think, a Dune, like from the bad guys in Dune. But again, it made me think of something else, which kind of took me out of it.
Right.
But they overpower the guard. They all get in the escape pod, except for they leave her and the unconscious guy. She's just like, how about a hand here? Which was a joke because they ripped the robot's arm off in the control panel.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and just like, how about a hand here? He did like.
I find it interesting in many other Star Wars films, they normally separate the prisoners, and there's usually contingency plans based on which prisoner they have. They really underestimated that guy with the head.
Yeah, right. Yeah. How did no one know that he had that?
Yeah, I mean, you mean that there was no backlog on his species, and that they didn't like cover that thing up in some kind of way? Like, you already put the thing on the guy's mouth. Like,
right.
Why not?
Right.
Like, how dangerous are his words dangerous? Is that what it is? Like, he's just
right, and he was in a cell by himself, so who was he going to hurt?
Right.
You know. So they're going kind of through an asteroid field close to a planet. The thing that they did to override the ship knocked out most of the systems. They eject away, and an asteroid hits the ship and knocks a panel loose or a compartment loose, and there's Pep. Conveniently, yes.
Knocks it.
Right. So this is your moment. You know, if she has the Force, this is the moment. She's reaching through the thing and she's trying to get it, and nothing happens. Right. Absolutely nothing. Luckily for her, the ship jostles in the other direction, so her Force power is luck at this point. She gets Pip and says, "Okay, let's get out of here." She
does kind of use him as like a.
Oh yeah, she did. She zapped him. She got her thing open, and she was gonna go. There was one more emergency pod tool left. She tried to get the other prison out so she has heart. She has compassion, but the guy's dead weight. She can't move him. So she uses her multi-tool Pip again. Yeah. Zaps the little parasite thing that has him unconscious. It goes flying off somewhere. He wakes up, freaks out, runs right over to the escape hatches and gets off and gone.
That's kind of odd. He knew exactly where to go, and that is, it's just all the timing with that is kind of odd for me.
Well,
I mean, if he's if he's out of that state of mind, like I question if that's how he entered the ship. So like, how did he already know?
True.
But this is beyond what we're supposed to be questioning. We're just supposed to be watching.
Yeah, we're focusing on the story. Yeah.
Show. So it's fine, I guess.
So the one thing that I didn't care for in this, so this ship was droid piloted.
Right.
And so you have two droids that were piloting it, and when it gets shut down, the droid's head becomes like the seat, the backrest of the seat, like the droid's arm, or the armrest of the chairs. And you thought that was cool.
I did. But thinking on it now, I'm wondering, okay, if there had been 2 more droids piloting the ship, that would have just been a greater threat for the prisoners to try to
Overtake the
overtake in order
right.
to. So I do, like, it was just cool, just considering, like, okay, people can still pilot the ship normally.
Yeah, it's one of those. I didn't like it, but I did appreciate just like okay, the seat is the droid. I mean, I
I feel
I
like
get it. I just didn't like it.
I think we've seen that design in other Star Wars references, but they did it better
Okay,
than just them
as far
being
as
a
the
seat.
okay,
I
well,
just don't know which.
okay, the head of that thing, the elongated head, reminded me of the in Return of the Jedi. The droid that was down, the droid slaver guy. I'll teach you some respect. That guy.
Okay.
That's what
All
his
right.
yeah.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, that's what it first reminded me of. So I'm like, okay. So the ship goes, crash lands on the planet, and it was okay. If the seats were regular seats, why didn't she just strap herself into one of the seats,
That's
which
a
would
good
be a crash?
point.
Because she takes these containers, more loose debris to fly around,
True.
and she straps herself in
Yeah.
that thing. And I'm just like, why didn't you? Because the pilot seats would be designed to be able to absorb the crash.
And it was intact
Yeah, because
upon
they just
crash landing. So you actually made a good point. None of us really thought of until just now. That's a good point.
but we're nitpicking. We're
Yeah, maybe that had to do with camera frames. They're like, oh well, like no one else was sitting in those seats, so like, why does she need to in order? Well, in most other movies, that's usually what they do. They usually strap themselves into the pilot seats,
right.
and they're just like, all right.
Yeah, if you're gonna survive, that'd be the one place.
But yeah, that's
So
that's a good
okay,
point.
so um, so flashback to Coruscant. They captured all the prisoners. She's not among them,
Right.
and so well, okay. So let's step back a little bit. We get introduced to Soul, her who was her Jedi Master when Oshi was a Padawan,
Yeah.
and it was really he's leading a bunch of younglings through some meditations, and he tells them, close your eyes, what do you see? And well, I see darkness, blah, blah. And then there's one that says, I see fire. And you had made an interesting point that maybe somehow that this youngling has an ability where he's kind of tapping into the mental history of Master Soul,
Yeah.
because we know obviously fire is a thing. It's going to be a running theme in this series. So I had not thought about that. I just thought maybe she's just being dark and creepy.
Yeah, and thinking on it now, it kind of seems like it would have made more sense if the who was the master who came in.
Vanessa Rowe.
So if she had came in, they had this conversation, and then he went back to talking to the Padawans, and then she made that point about I see fire. That I think would have
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would have made
came
more
full
sense. It would have flowed
circle.
better. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that.
So that's one oversight I think on production where they should have maybe thought that through a little bit more. He would have been conflicted a little bit in his
Yeah.
thoughts, and then that would have been something to pull from because I mean that's something that's pretty normal when it comes to Jedi. They're like always seeking like how the other ones are thinking and feeling. I see, something.
Right,
Something going
right,
on,
right.
whatever they're feeling in that moment. So yeah, that would have been good as a better reference.
So, speaking of the Jedi Master Vanessa Rowe, I was introduced to that character in the High Republic novels she was supposedly at the time the youngest Jedi to make knight, and she was on a mission. So I've watched her character grow from kind of an insecure teenager to where she is now, which I think she's like a way seeker. And there's been kind of maybe 4 years because this gets into a whole other storyline that it's in the books that you don't need to be concerned with right now. You don't need.
So, what were you expecting out of her character, or what would you have preferred to have seen out of her character
Well,
in this
what we
moment?
got was this just very, very wooden, very cold individual, and her main concern was, in my opinion, she's just like, we need to squash this. A Jedi's been killed, and we don't need our enemies to hear this, and we need to get this swept under the rug as quickly as possible. I just like my version of that character would have been a little bit more empathetic than that,
Right.
And it's just she was just very wooden, and I just like, no, I'm not.
And that thought process had me thinking that she was speaking on behalf of her superiors rather than herself. Like someone else came down and said, "You need to go. You need to go talk to Soul and figure out what's going on, and whatever. Based on what he says, either way, we need to, nip this in the bud as soon as possible." So I mean, I could see that perhaps those weren't her words, but then again, considering that the production behind this storyline is taking things in their own direction, it's possible that they tried to shift it, to make her seem a little more of a serious, like, she's really concerned and,
I see, and I wasn't getting concerned from. I was
Oh,
not.
no, not at
I
all.
was not getting concerned from that
Not
perspective.
at
I was
all.
getting deception.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but anyway, I mean that's just my own personal complaint. But so we find out that the ship crashes, and Soul asks to have permission to go and see if she's still alive because everyone else survived. They don't have a body, so he's just like, "Let me go find her. Let me go bring her in." And reluctantly, they give her permission. She gives him permission, and so we get Soul and his Padawan. I don't know what her name is. And just as they were getting ready to leave, she turns to him and says, he's looking at a video of Osha as a child, I guess, as his Padawan. And she asked him, well, why do you keep videos of your old Padawan? We're not supposed to have attachments. And, she goes down these Jedi mantras. And he says to her something along the lines of,
we meditate on past so that we're not doomed to repeat it.
okay. And so, which is a very good feel. I'm getting a good feel from this character.
Yeah.
So they go to, they were like, okay, we need to go, but we need backup. And she turns, she goes, Yord? And the first, so we get to Yord, and he's standing there steaming his robes. And I'm like, oh, Yord.
Yeah, hopefully that's maybe the last time we'll see that particular angle. Like, hopefully we see character development beyond that.
Oh, he's got a lot of developing to do.
I'm gonna say it's gonna take at least 2 more episodes before we.
Two more. I'm gonna hold you to that.
Yeah, I hope
we'll
so,
see.
yeah.
We'll see where we.
Yeah. What's that gonna
That would be
5?
episode what? Episode 3. Well, this is episode 1. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see.
okay. So, and so at this point, he does the, I'm sorry for messing this up. I should have brought her in myself, and you had a problem with that.
Yeah, because it reminded me of like old martial arts and samurai films where the young apprentice is very apologetic when they make a mistake, and I just don't think that was a realm that we needed to go for Jedi because that's not really
Right.
something that we see. So if they're paying homage to that, then I can let it slide, but that doesn't mean I'm happy about it. It's just kind of something that we could have done without.
Right.
I think there would be a better way for him to, like, other antics that we from the Star Wars universe that we could have seen that would have that would have landed better.
Well, what I don't know what his Padawan's name is, but I think she's the point of view of the teenage viewer because, there he is without his shirt on, and she's like,
Yeah.
put your shirt on, Yord.
Yeah.
And she's just so deadpan, just like, dude. So I really do like this character, and we do get more of her in episode 2. But they keep me on track here. So they go to the planet,
yeah.
to the ice planet,
Yeah.
to ice planet. Anyway, so again, we switch to Oshi. She wakes up on the ship. She's having a vision. She sees a figure, and she follows the figure out. And it's she gets to a cave or something. She turns around, and she says, she basically says, "Hey, it's me. I'm your sister, and I'm still alive." And she's like, "Did you kill Master Inari?" "Yes, I did. I'm going to kill them all."
Yeah, and then the black eyes thing.
Yeah, again, her eyes went back black. So even still, at this point, I'm thinking maybe there's some force, psychosis, split personality thing here, because she wakes up with a start again, breathing heavy. So I'm thinking there's definitely some kind of a connection here. I just don't know what it is, and we're keep being told that there's a sister, but and as a matter of fact, Yord didn't even know that there was a sister. That and you could see on his mind. Then now he's backtracking in his head when they were still on Coruscant. Him going, well, she said she didn't do it. So, and there is a twin sister. So, oh, well, there's a twist. Maybe there's something going on here.
And you would think that would be in their files somewhere. I mean, maybe I'm reaching with that one, but one would think if they have an extended profile on this.
Well, okay, but see, the thing about the Jedi don't do. It's not like you can just go to HR.
That's true. Or they're not like typing up like the police report at the end of the
Right.
case or something like that. That's a fair point.
I think based on the way they're getting their new recruits, I would think that your past would be very frowned upon. Although it's just kind of ironic that we keep getting these stories of these children with force power that have coming from these troubled situations.
Yeah.
And we even find out in the second episode that there's a little bit of a trauma connection between Soul and Osha. But so they get down to the planet, and Osha wakes up in time to look up at the hole in the ceiling of the ship, and it's snowing, it's cold. She shows no sign of being cold. She doesn't grab a coat, or anything.
That the ship still had some kind of. I mean, that's it's possible maybe that part of it was on fire. Who knows?
But it seemed like that was a. I need to look at on the galaxy map how far away this planet was from Coruscant, because it seems like if she was passed out for a time and then woke up when they got there, Coruscant has to be really close to this planet. So they're really rushing the timeline here. But so this time, and I'm thinking that the second time she woke up was her actually waking up, as the first time was just her waking up in the dream.
Which, to be fair, the whole waking up within a dream is like that trope has been tried so many times, and to the point where I can always tell now, they're dreaming. Like this is, it's pretty common. Like I'll probably do it if I happen to write a story, maybe just on accident from having seen it so many times. So
right.
I'm not overly disappointed by the dream within a dream. It's just
it wasn't shocking. It was
just kind of like this is to be expected.
So she wakes up this time. She sees they're coming for her, so she grabs her stuff. She grabs Pip, stubs her in her pocket. She goes running off into the snow.
Yeah.
The Jedi get to the ship, and they're looking around like, well, she was here. There's no one should have been able to survive this. But much like other Jedi, Souls I get the impression from him, if she had died, I would have known. Okay? So you were making the comment where they didn't even show sign. They just always knew which way to go.
Yes, and then speaking on that, now it seems like, okay, after she had her vision and she followed her sister within that dream, where was she gonna go?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, like if it were me, as soon as I would either have stayed on the ship,
And waited for them. Yeah.
or I would have hid in that cave. Like that ledge would have been the last thought. For me.
Okay. Well. Okay. So, so she runs to the cave, and the cave, and she runs to a ledge, and so she can't go anywhere. The Jedi come into the cave, and it's not even really dark, but Yord, this guy,
Yeah.
pulls up the lightsaber. I'm like, come on, dude, what are you doing? And he sees her at the edge, and he's just like, in the name of the Republic, I need you. It's just like, just stop.
Which I don't know if it was. Of course, he was following protocol, but it wasn't really his place.
No, because he was not the lead.
Yeah, he overstepped in that regard.
Now, at this point, she didn't know Soul was there, and so he steps forward, and I really like this character.
Yes.
He, for all the things that I don't like about Yord, I like about this actor and this character. He's just, in the little time he's been on screen, you get so much passion and so much empathy and so much. He's just doing so much. And you were telling me that he learned English to play this role, which
Yeah.
just, if he's a new English speaker and he gets all this.
Yeah, he can elicit that much emotion and make a genuinely believable character. Whom, I mean, I'm not sure if these are all made up characters because I mean, if this is canon, then and it's 100 years prior, then I'm assuming that they kind of cherry picked from certain attributes of other Star Wars stories, but they use that to make their own.
Yeah.
Things in their own direction.
If they usually what they do, if they pull a character, kind of like the Vanestra
Yes.
row. Here is a character, an established character, but we're changing the characteristics. I can't say off the top of my head that any of these characters are ones that I know of from any of the stories that I've read.
Okay.
The only thing that gives me pause is it's only 100 years before the Empire, so I do know at least two characters are still that are alive in this time frame, Yoda and Yaddle.
Right.
Those are the only two that I know of that would be, well, they're probably, we'd have to look at the ages of some of the other. I don't think like Master Plo or any of those would be, but I know for a fact Yoda and if we don't see Yoda in this one, I'm fine with that.
Oh yeah, me too. It would be nice if they would pull more from Legends in order to solidify some of their canon. You know, like if there were just like, okay, we're gonna take the Legends attributes from this thing, but we're gonna try to like maybe stretch it out a little bit to give it a little more character development or more time for you to appreciate. You know, because of course it seems like they're trying to push away from Legends, which is why I believe that they decided to dial it back 100 years prior to all this, so that they could have essentially full range to
do their own thing and not be.
And that's kind of the common theme that they've been doing with other films. I wouldn't say necessarily with like The Mandalorian. That seems like a very targeted direction based on the events that took place after Return of the Jedi. So there's a lot of more, because at least what makes The Mandalorian interesting is the fact that, you know, after Return of the Jedi, everything's up in the air, so it's pretty much anyone's game, and that's really interesting. I don't know enough about what happened 100 years prior, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of things that were getting established during that time. So it's kind of hard to be like dabble in any direction that you.
This is pretty open. I mean, you've got the High Republic, and I want to say that might be 300 years beforehand. Mm-hmm. So they are picking these points in time where the story is fairly they're not constrained by the story of the Skywalker line or
Yeah.
whatever. But you're always still going to have the through line of the Force and the light and the dark side of the Force. So I can live with that. But we're in the cave,
Right.
and so she's standing there at the edge, and she looks to Soul, and she says, "I didn't do it." And so I thought it would be kind of funny if Soul had pulled a Tommy Lee Jones on her and said, "I don't care."
Yeah.
But I would have gotten a lot. That would have pulled me out because I would have gotten it, because everything that in this whole situation is already pointing towards that scene in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And so, well, I didn't even think about that in the movie, the Fugitive. He jumps,
Yeah.
she falls, but he catches her, and this is the first time we get to see him use the Force and see what kind of a powerful Jedi he is. He catches her, kind of holds her there for a second, and Pip Droid kind of looks, and he's like, "Hey, we're out here in midair," and then he yanks her back up,
Yeah.
kind of forcefully. But then he runs to her, and he goes, he's kind of like, "Hey, I'm here. I've got you." And she's, "I didn't do this. My sister May is alive," and he's like, "I believe you."
I do think when he pulled her back, she kind of like gets into not necessarily a kneeling position, but I thought that was kind of cool. Like, I'm not sure it was purposeful, but it was kind of like a position of
Submission or
accidental, respectful.
Oh,
submission.
okay,
Just
okay.
kind of so in a way, then her admitting
So she was kind of defaulting back to her position as a Padawan.
not on purpose, I would
Yeah,
say.
well, yeah, true, but it kind of like it was just habit.
Yeah.
Like subliminal habit.
I mean, I don't know, maybe just from the way that she was pulled in, I don't know, that's just what I got out of that stance. It was very,
Okay.
probably she didn't do it on purpose. It just kind of happened to, just appear that way. But he did believe, a lot of people would say that he believed her too easily, but I mean, he left already kind of believing,
Oh, yeah.
I have to be the one to see this through because I don't think that she's that type of person to do that. So he'd already addressed that. So for people to get upset on the back end that he just believed, he'd already made his choice on what he believed beforehand. It would have been nice at least to, well, maybe that's a bit too far for me to say it in that way, but if he would have felt something in that moment or had seen something in, use the Force to see something in her mind in order to, because don't you have to either you're going to block them from trying to use the Force against you, which would be a clear sign that you are hiding something, or you're going to open your mind to them, in which they'll see what they need to see in order to reveal that you're telling the truth, or
I guess, but the hard thing is, up until this point, we have eyewitness account that it was her. They dragged that bartender all the way across the galaxy just to go, "That's her."
Yeah.
So, but he's like, "Let's go," and there's Cord with the Yord with the manacles, just like, and I could just see the paddle, and he just like, "No, put them away. We're fine,"
I think she kind of looked at him too.
Yeah.
She kind of,
With
not necessarily glare, but.
Well, rightfully so. It's just like, because she's like, "Nobody believes me, and I know I didn't do this."
Right.
He's the only one. I'm like, well, if he believes me, why don't you believe me?
Mm-hmm.
And we had some kind of a friendship. So
I think that she was probably better than him.
Oh,
at the academy in
absolutely.
some kind of way. He feels some type of way about that, and he's so of course he's.
And then she walked away on
Right.
top of all that. So I really don't want there to be this to turn into a love interest thing between the two of them.
I hope not. It would be best if they don't.
Right, but I can see some people saying, "Well,
Yeah.
But I can see the Padawan, just like, we don't need the manacles, and I can see his Padawan looking like just like, Yord.
Oh, that would have been great. Yeah.
This guy. I mean, okay. So, was that the end of the episode?
No, there's still more. There's still more because the walk on the beach or the coast.
Oh, okay. So yeah, okay. So we get May walking on the beach, and there's a dark figure in the distance on a rock, and he's saying things about you must, as an acolyte, you can.
We don't attack with weapons.
Yeah, you
We don't.
okay. You don't attack with. She totally attacked with a weapon.
I don't think that she was revealing how she's doing what she's doing. Like, I'm sure to them, she's probably, and I'm sure they know, like deep down, they know that she's probably using weapons to some degree, or maybe it's, I don't know. That's really odd. I'd have to look into what that means because I really didn't even question or care what an acolyte was. But I
Right.
know that was
Well,
the thing.
I agree with that. But the final scene, he says his little thing, and then you see a red lightsaber come out from a hilt. Now, to me, it looked kind of long, so it looked kind of Darth Maul-ish. Where you would, how before we knew the double lightsaber, it just looked like like a big two-handed.
Right.
It looked like that from the distance. So we don't have any information about this guy.
That would be interesting, though. That would be interesting. I don't think that's what it is, but that would be.
And maybe it's a feint.
Because people were like, okay, if he's the acolyte leader, I mean, obviously we're trying to lead into some kind of Sith thing because he's got the red, saber, and they only revealed it at the end, and yet you're expecting your acolytes to fight without weapons. So it's like, where's the continuity between you and them? But who knows? Maybe you have to earn the ranks in order to get to, or maybe certain amounts of revenge, because that's very Sith-worthy behavior, right? To be seeking revenge and leading with emotion.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm thinking that, at least based on the end, that we're probably going to see a rise of some kind of Sith power. We have to, because every Star Wars show normally has some kind of main
Right.
Sith-esque bad guy, and I'm not really sure what to expect because I don't know who's behind the cloak. Because we don't know if it's a mask, but they got, obviously there's got we got to have the the
Right.
voice
Right. In the
too.
voice. Yeah.
So I don't know. I was okay with the end of that episode, and not at the same time. Mainly because I don't know what to expect out of her character.
If the only reason I was okay with the ending of this episode when it first aired is because they aired episode 1 and 2 the same night.
Okay.
And so had they just aired episode 1, I would have been highly disappointed.
That's fair. Oh yeah. Because
I mean, because to me, all this felt like was, it felt like just an audience grab. Let's throw some fights in there and a little bit of force use and a little bit of mystery and get as many eyes on this as we can, which is what they're supposed to be doing. But at the same time, as a longtime Star Wars fan, I need a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I do prefer a solid story. And as long as I get that out of this, outside of all the other controversial things that people have a problem with, as long as I get a solid story, I'll be just pleased with that. Because that's all I really want out of any movie or TV show, realistically. It's just, it doesn't, I don't always want to see the rat race, because that gets kind of old too. Oh, we got to get to the thing really fast. There's so much room for things to get skipped. But I mean, I think personally that the pacing in this particular episode went very well, other than the fact that they killed off.
Carrie-Anne Moss.
Yeah, so fast.
Yeah, that was a little
So
disappointing.
fast.
So, I got nothing with that. I'm just like, they're just, anyway, we already went down that rabbit hole of anatomy.
But
So
I'm curious as to who is behind that cloak in the red saber. I really want to know. I'm going to be really excited. I'm wondering how many episodes it will take for it to be further hinted at. Like it could be. Well, normally a good series would probably try to kick that in about episode 4 or 5, so at least we know at least an idea what we're dealing with, maybe. So we'll see when those episodes get released. But
I think this is only supposed to be like a 6-episode series.
8.
8 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then that would explain why the pacing is kind of fast then,
Yeah.
because they don't have that much time to get all this story out.
And
I will say this: there's more. I feel like they are further along in the story for this than they were in Ahsoka at the same time.
Yeah.
To me, it took a long time for Ahsoka to get some legs.
Because where were we at? I mean, because it really didn't kick in. Because episode 1 was really good, but it really didn't. Ahsoka didn't kick in too heavily for me until there was the memories between her and Anakin. That's when I really got excited about the show.
That was the
like 7,
5.
Oh, 5. See that? Yeah. So based on previous pacing from others, I'm just expecting that's when it'll pick up. And it's not just Disney. A lot of shows do this too. Like where you're just bored for 4 episodes and you're like, when is it?
You should never be bored.
No.
You should never go, okay, I'm going to sit through this and see, because then you're wasting my time.
Yeah, and I would say with The Mandalorian, I like The Mandalorian so much that, I mean, like, there were bits and pieces for every episode where I was on the edge of my seat. There was always literally something where I was like, oh man, how are we gonna get out of this one? So, I hope that we get there.
Yeah.
With this show.
Okay. Well, that was going to wrap episode 1. So we're going to look at what's going on in episode 2.
Yeah.
And that's going to do it for episode 1. Thing is, we seriously thought that we were going to get all the way to episode 3, because we both watched up to episode 3. But after doing the editing and finding myself at an hour, I'm like, maybe this is a good place to stop. So what I'll do is go on ahead and start working on episode 2 and get that out for you. But until next time, this has been Media and More with the Mediocre Modeler on Star Wars: The Acolyte. Pew 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 pew.